This week's Parsha is Parshas Teruma, and it's also Rosh Chodesh Adar. So, I'd like to focus on one specific aspect of the Parsha, which will also allow for us to explore a topic which is very relevant due to the special time of year that is Chodesh Adar. So, as you might imagine, the theme is going to be the theme of Simcha. But just before we do, I just want to share a bit of housekeeping. Next week, Parshas Teruma, there's no share. The following week, Parshas Kisisa, which is a few days before Purim, I would like to give a share on the topic of Purim, or practical insights from the Megillah. And we'll be back to Tuesdays on that week, Mitzvah Hashem. After Purim, there'll be one more share pre-Pesach, and then a break till after Pesach. More details to be confirmed. Okay. So let's begin with Midrashim. Two good Midrashim point to this aspect of Simcha. So the Bamidbar Rabbi Yud Beis, the Medrash says, it's in the context of the Nesiim. The Nesiim, as we know, were criticized for not joining in the efforts too quickly in building the Mishkan. And they said, the Medrash tells us, Omru Yoviu ha'am mashi yoviu or mashi chasru nemali anachnu. Whatever they bring, and whatever we'll replace afterwards, whatever's missing. And the Medrash goes on to say, Somchu kol Yisrael b'melechas ha'mishkan. Klal Yisrael were happy with the building of the Mishkan. V'heviu b'simcha kol nadava or b'zrizos. They brought every contribution of what we describe in this week's Adar of Teruma. They brought b'simcha, in joy, b'zrizos. That's one Medrash. The other Medrash is Tanchuma Pikudei, and the Medrash says a whole bunch of psukim telling us that the Mishkan was instructed to Moshe Rabbeinu on Yom Kippur. It was with kaparas of the Egel, etc. And the Medrash ends off, V'osu es ha-Mishkan b'chedva or b'simcha. And they made the Mishkan with great chedva and simcha. Okay, so the Mishkan was built with simcha. That's what the Medrash comes to tell us. And you know, the truth is, it's an obvious fact that it was built with simcha. And listen to this calculation as to why. The Medrash in Bereshis is Memhei, Chav Zayin, and there's many other Midrashim which state the same point, states, Ein ha-shchina sheira elo mitoich simcha. Shchina is only able to rest on someone in an atmosphere of simcha. That proves what? Yeah, it's a good idea to have simcha, and it's fundamental as the part of Avodas Hashem to have simcha. But I'm pointing to the fact that Hashras HaShechina is only possible when there's simcha. Is it? Not sure it's the same thing. Okay.
I can't rest on you because you're not besimcha.
Yeah, but Tachas Shelevat Simcha means that's why you got punishments.
Right. Because I can't.
Right, the distance from Hashem. Yeah, fair. I take that point. Very good. So 1 second. So we know for a fact that for the Shechina to rest, there has to be simcha. Okay. And we know that the pasuk in this is said, "Va'asuli mikdash v'shechanti b'seicha." Hashem says, "Make me a mishkan so that I should be able to rest my Shechina inside the mishkan." So for Hashem to be able to rest the Shechina inside the Mishkan, it must be that the Mishkan was made with Simcha. Because without Simcha, Hashem wouldn't be able to rest the Shechina there. Okay? Simple calculation. Take it a stage further. There's a very oft-quoted Medrash, Chazal, for which I have been unsuccessful to find the Makar. But it is quoted so vastly across loads of different Sfarim. I'm talking about from reputable Sfarim, Nefesh HaChaim, Pele Yoetz, and many others I've checked up that do quote this Chazal. And they say Omru Chazal, but they don't say where the source for this Chazal is. But everybody knows it. And the Chazal is, they darshan the Pasuk V'shachanti b'soicham. The word b'soicham is plural. Hashem says, I'm going to rest inside you, plural. Says this Chazal, b'soichoi lo nema elo b'soicham. Not singular, but rather plural. And variations of what happens next, but essentially what the Medrash says is, Hashem says, I'm going to rest inside each and every one of you. Okay, the earliest source I found for this was the Al-Sheikh, still 16th century, so it's pretty early. Al-Sheikh himself says it, and he doesn't quote Chazal when he says it, he just says it off his own bat. It's fair to say that the Al-Sheikh is the only Makar, because generally speaking, when people say Amr Chazal, they mean Medrash, Gemara, they don't mean the Al-Sheikh. So, no. If anyone finds the original source for this Chazal, I will be extremely grateful. So if you do some research or find something, please let me know. I'll call upon him. Okay, we'll take the Chazal as it is, because as I say, it's very, very much quoted everywhere. Essentially what Hashem is saying is, I want to rest inside every single one of you, every single one of the Yidden. If you want Hashem to rest inside you, you need to be basimcha, because ein hashchina sheira ela mitech simcha. So, what we now have then from this week's Adar is a springboard to further investigate and understand what it means and what is required of a person to be basimcha. And how wonderful that we are entering Adar in a couple of days, and therefore what a topic that it is, how relevant this topic is for us. So we're going to start with the Gemara in Tainus. In fact, the Mishnah in Tainus. The Mishnah in Tainus Chavav Amud Beis talks about Chodesh Av, and the Mishnah says, Misha nichnas Av memaitin b'simcha. When Av comes in, a person should reduce their levels of simcha. And the Mishnah continues with details of how a person should conduct themselves, not eating meat, they sleep a different way. And as we come closer to Tisha B'Av, we know the halachas of Tisha B'Av. We have the 3 weeks, we have the 9 days, we have Shosh HaChalba, we have the Erev Tisha B'Av itself, etc., which are all halachas made up from the Mishnah and Gemara. In fact, the Meiri in Tainus makes reference to the Gemara in Yevamos Mem Gimel, which further broadens out the halachas as it pertains to Shabbos Echol Tisha B'Av B'Seicha. You can't have haircuts or wash, etc. We are familiar with all these halachas, as I said, but essentially the Gemara, the Mishnah and Gemara speak them out in describing in Av where a person has to reduce their levels of simcha. Later, the Gemara of Tesam Adala famously, Omar Avidu Bereder Rav Shmuel Bar Shilas Medrash Medrash Rav says, Kashem shemishenichnas Av memaitim b'simcha, kach mishenichnas Adar memaitim b'simcha. Just like when Av comes in, we reduce the simcha, so when Adar comes in, we increase simcha. And all the Gemara goes on to say is one more statement. Omar Papa Hilkach, a Yid who has a court case with a goy should make sure not to have it in Av, the Reya Mazle, the Mazle is bad, rather have it in Adar, the Bori Mazle, because Adar is an auspicious, positively auspicious time, a good time. That's it. End of Gemara. So we are left to wonder 2 questions. First of all, when the Gemara says that Mishenichnas Adar marbin b'simcha, what does it mean to be marbin b'simcha? What, have a bit more every day? What does it mean to increase simcha? What does that mean? That's question number 1. And question number 2 is, how come the Gemara doesn't detail anything when it comes to Adar about how a person should be marbin b'simcha? We said by Av, we listed out all the details that are out there as to how we need to reduce levels of simcha, and yet by Adar there's nothing. I remember the Bach in Yeshiva, in Adar, he used to have a little l'chaim every day because he was marbin b'simcha. So he built up the Purim, right? Is that what it means?
Marbin b'simcha means that there's always a certain level of simcha anyway, which has to be going on around. I mean, like Avon, right? But there's always a...
So you're saying now what happens during the year or during Adar?
I'm saying during the year,
yes,
generally,
that you have to be b'simcha anyway. Absolutely, yeah.
And Marbin is by Adar, Martin, but there's always a somewhat.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. In fact, I once looked into memaitim b'simcha. There are those that say memaitim means, of course, memaitim, but you still need some because you can't live without simcha at all. Yeah. Now, there's chazal all over the place about what simcha is, right? There's simcha. There's a chazal that says ein simcha katera. We sing it on simchas Torah. Ein simcha katera. Okay. So all the mashgichim in yeshiva like to say, oh, Adar, mishenichnas Adar, marbin b'simcha, marbin b'teira. What else? Yeah, but the thing is, there are other chazal as well, right? There's a Gemara in Pesachim, ein simcha ela basar v'yayin. Depending, Beis Hamikdash, not Beis Hamikdash. All right, ein simcha ela b'yayin nowadays. Okay, so how about that one? And there's another chazal, ein simcha kataras hasveikas. There's no simcha like a person's being able to get clarity and resolving his doubts. Great, so what should I do? Every single day do like a therapy session, work out what I'm not clear about and then get clarity with it? There's so many different chazal that point to ein simcha ela that it becomes a confusing question. What is it? What is it that we're supposed to be marbin b'simcha? What does it mean? Okay, so first of all, let's start with a very basic premise upon which we will say something. The pasuk we say every day in davening is Ivdu es Hashem b'simcha. serve Hashem with joy. You referenced before. Of course, serving Hashem with joy is fundamental. But the Kada Kemach writes on this pasuk in Simcha Aleph Aleph. He writes the following. He says it's more than just the idea that when a person serves Hashem, he should do so b'simcha. It's more than that. Ein hasimcha ru'uya ba'olam hazeh ki im ba'avodas Hashem. The appropriate simcha to have in this world, says the Kada Kemach, is through service of Hashem. And he says even stronger, V'lo timtza b'chol sifra HaKodesh, you won't find anywhere in Sforim, she'yishabech hasimcha, elo be'inin ha'avodah v'ha'asokah v'akadosh baruch Hu. You will only find a praise given to the midah, to the experience of simcha in Sforim, says the Kada Kemach, when it's in context of service of Hashem in some form. Now, the knowledgeable ones amongst us may want to ask that the pasuk in Keheles, Ches Tesvav says, "V'shibachti ani es hasimcha," I praise a simcha. Asher ein tev le'adam tachas hashamayim, there's nothing good as simcha. Ki im lecha v'nishtois v'nismayach, eat, drink, and be merry. Didn't the Kada Kemach just say that all simcha mentioned in all Sforim is all avodas Hashem? But the Shlomo Melech is saying seemingly otherwise. But if you look in the Mefarshim, as one should when one looks at Psukim, especially in Keheles Shashim and these types of Psukim, Gemara Shabbos says Simcha Shal Mitzvah. Rashi there brings from Medrash, it means Kol Achilo Shasiyah Shel Keheles is Talmud Torah. Other Medrashim say Ma'asim Tovim. It's all ruchnis. So for some of you, this may be the simplest thing in the world, but I still feel it's really important to emphasize when we're talking about Simcha, that Simcha, genuine joy, is a spiritual experience. And there's nothing in this world that a person can bring a person to true Simcha unless it is a spiritual experience of connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in some form. And I think it's an important perspective to have when we delve into different things bring a person physical satisfaction, physical pleasure, physical joy. I'm not denying that. Like a family get together, a mitzvah, like Friday night type of thing, and someone of the extended family, Boch and Yeshua at the time, not a close relative to the Baal Simcha, stood up and made a siyum. And I got to tell you, it brought to mind in that moment of Ein Ma'arav and Simcha B'Simcha. It's fine as ach, make a siyum, but not now. Now it's a Simcha of the mitzvah. Let the guy have his moment. Let the family enjoy it. Like, it's a Simcha that has its own. There's a concept of Ein Ma'arav and Simcha. We don't want to mix Simchas. So normally on Yom Tov, v'samachta b'chagecha means make this day about HaKadosh Baruch Hu, about Yom Tov. Don't get married on this day. And indeed, some poskim, Adar HaMoshe brings them first, say the same applies to Purim. Purim is a day of Simcha. Don't Not be married with Simcha every day a bit more, but increase your Simcha from your normal levels before Adar. Because Adar is a special month. Step in the zone. That's in my understanding, that's what Marabim means. The Meiri says, although he focuses this on one particular point, he says, brings from the Marib, Toiv Lasik, the Ramah says, Toiv Lasik Ma'at B'Torah, Koidem Shiyaskal HaSudah. It's good to learn a bit of Torah before you start the Purim Sudah. When I was in the Yeshiva in Eretz Yisrael, there was a Talmud Chacham there who used to learn in the Yeshiva. On Purim, he used to sit on his bench with his bottle of wine and his Gemara, sometime in the afternoon, and he would learn through the Gemara and go through the bottle of wine at the same time. actually mean? So what we explained was, essentially the Gemara is not telling us an instruction of Marabim B'Simcha that a person has to increase and turn up the dial incrementally. What the Gemara is trying to show us is Adar is on its own league. Adar is in its own category of auspicious time. It's Gewaldige Mazel. So that a person's attitude to Adar should be, this is a time to get involved. This is a time to be engaged. This is the time to connect HaKadosh Baruch Hu B'Simcha in a unique way which isn't available the rest of the year. That's all the Gemara is trying to tell us. How a person goes ahead and gets involved and is married B'Simcha, the Gemara leaves it completely up to you. Why? Because as Adar Moshe says, B'chol ma'adam sameach, whatever a person becomes happy to, whatever floats your boat, whatever makes you happy, you should engage in Simcha, in Adar. Having said all that, we made sure to emphasize in a number of different ways, the Simcha has to be meaningful. It has to be centered around connecting to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because if the Simcha is not, then a person can go way off course. So if we pursue a Simcha which is of connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we'll be Zocheh Mitzvah Hashem to Hashras Hashchina. Shkoyach.